Hello and welcome everyone to another Inkarnate live stream. My name is Mati, and today we're going to be doing our second editor Q&A live stream. So basically you're going to ask your general questions here. I would ask that you reserve questions concerning your account information, refund, or if you're reporting any kind of bugs or errors, go to your My Maps page. Your maps right here. Notice in the bottom right corner, you notice this kind of smiley face. It says greetings traveler. Send us a message and we will address whatever those issues are, okay? Also, please, if you have any suggestions for art or for features, we have a built-in system for that, or a system for that. So we'll go ahead and provide the links for the art and feature requests in the chat. So go ahead and check that out once they're put in. Okay, let's just jump right in. I am looking forward to this. Hope people have lots of questions. I'll answer any questions that you have. Definitely check out, open up an editor if you have any questions about how the mask tool works. Even if you have questions about folders, cloning, deleting, anything like that that has to do in the folder section, we're willing to answer any of those questions. So feel free to ask. And while people are filtering in, I'll probably start just working on a map for fun while people are getting ready. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing the questions and answering them. I'll go ahead and delete this and I'll get started on a map. I'm in the fantasy regional style here. Okay. I can start putting things together until people ask some questions. I'm going to be playing around with the mask tool here. I'm just going to make a little map while people are putting their questions together. It's always fun to put a little map together. Let's see here. Ooh, no questions yet. Anyone have any questions about the mask tool, how it operates? Anyone have any question about layers? Now someone's got to have some kind of question. Wow, not that busy. Any questions, anybody? All right, well then I guess I'll just continue making a map then until people have questions. When's the new path tool coming? The new path tool. I didn't know. What do you mean? Is there a specific feature that you would like to see with the path tool? But name what that kind of feature is that you'd like to see. And if you have a specific one, room tool. You know what? The room tool. Yep, there you go. There's your response. It's not ready yet, and we would hate to release it when it's not done. Right? We want it to be perfect for you because we don't want you to work with an incomplete and not a fun tool, right? So of course, be patient with us. We're a small team and we will try to get that feature done quickly. That's an understandable question. I'm super excited about the room tool myself. So there's some amazing things you can do with it. You want to be in EA. Well, the way to get onto EA is to do really good maps, do really good work. If you start seeing your maps on the Explore page, that's generally a good sign. You know, and of course, be very active on our Discord server. And that's the kind of gumption, the kind of stuff we're looking for people with our EA group. So make some killer maps and just be really active on our Discord. Help people out if they have questions. We can provide that Discord link if you're not already joined our Discord link. We'll provide that for you. Definitely want to join our Discord server. We have some of the nicest people there. Mentors are there to ping and ask them for help. If you're having any trouble with your maps, of course, watch our streams here on Twitch, or you go ahead and watch them later on YouTube. Let's just see. I'm kind of just making kind of a little river here. And then I think I'll just make a shoreline here. Not really enjoying the edges there. Yes, be as active as possible. That's the best way to get to our EA. Oh, there you go. Yes, definitely join our Discord. Anyone have any questions concerning maybe filters? Oh, here is a first-time chat. Hey, awesome. Hey, B, America D. Merrick D. Hello, I have a question. I just bought the Pro and I'm loving it, but the functionality for layering the painting for the surfaces will be implemented. For layering the painting for the surfaces will be implemented? I don't think I understand the last part of the question. When you mean layering, so the way that paint layering works is there are two mask layers. An FG, which is your foreground, that's anything made with the add mode of the mask tool, and your BG layer, which is going to be your default mask layer for your canvas. That's anything made with the subtract mode of the mask tool. So there's only really two paintable layers, FG, BG, and you can paint over a stamp if you flatten the stamp. So like if I put down a stamp like this, let's go ahead and pick a stamp. And this is perfect. There's land and water right here, so that's perfect. And if I say I want to flatten something, I can go to the hamburger menu. That's going to be those three dashed lines there. And you're going to see flatten, flatten FG or flatten to BG. Now you'll notice that I have this item right here is both in the FG and BG layers. So if I flatten it, it will only stick to one of those two layers. You can't flatten something to both layers, only to one layer. So if I go to flatten, say I want to flatten it to the FG layer, you'll notice that it's flattened here. And now you can officially paint over it if you want to change it in some way, but just know that it's no longer editable. Okay. Oh, good. I'm glad you're familiar with that. Let me check and see if there's any questions I missed. Painting a road. I just use a texture to paint a road. You know, it really helps though if you're having a hard time like where the road is. What I take is I take a path tool first and I start at one location and then I just kind of make the path or the road with the path tool. And this way I'm not having a hard time painting the path, because sometimes you'll make a mistake and you're like, oh shoot, you know, I didn't want to go that way. When I put down my roads, I use a path first and then I just drop the opacity really low like this. And then I just use whatever texture that I want for the road. It doesn't matter which texture you use. It's entirely up to you. I'll go ahead and use this one, for example. I'm going to boost up the size so you can kind of see the stonework. And then, of course, I always bring the opacity down when I paint in a road, because some sections of the road have kind of been faded away from weathering and stuff. So I just do like one pass first at kind of a lower opacity, have your softness on too, so that way it blends better. And then I just kind of go in and just fill in some spots heavier than others, like this. And then if you think like it's too much, then just kind of remove certain sections of the road to make it look like it's been weathered, and then just remove the path. And then there's your road. So paths are a great way to mark where you're going to paint something. They're great for all kinds of things, annotating an area, borders, or if you want to put down maybe your blocks for a city, or if you want to use it to mark where your path is going to be. Sometimes I don't even bother painting a road. I simply just use the path as the road and just change the blend mode. Oh, absolutely. Yep, you can use clipping masks are amazing. Let me tell you a little bit about clipping masks. You know what they are. Clipping masks are a godsend. They're absolutely useful. A clipping mask is simply an object that picks up whatever's on the FG layer. So if I put this on the FG layer, you notice nothing really happens because it's just picking up the texture that's already on the FG layer made with the add mode of the mask tool. But if I put that texture, put that stamp over the BG layer, it picks up the texture on the FG layer. This is perfect if you want to make like a bridge, and this way you can paint the top of the bridge with the clipping mask, just like the Rebel Grim just said. By the way, great suggestion, Rebel Grim. Absolutely fantastic. Clipping masks are your friends. And if you want to know more about clipping masks and their use cases, we have a YouTube video on clipping masks. Go check that out. That will totally explain it in more detail, but to put it simply, it just picks up whatever's on the FG layer, and because it's a stamp, you can put it on different layers and move it around. Absolutely useful. Totally recommend it. And until we get any more questions, I'll go ahead and make a real quick bridge so you can kind of see how it works. It's not too complex. It's really easy to put together. I'll go ahead and just make a bridge. I'm assuming it's top down is what you're looking for. Let me go ahead and go open up the entire Inkarnate catalog. I'm sure some of you have noticed we have a brand new catalog with legacy, with different types of sorting and tags. It's so much more easier. It's a little more sleeker. Everything is at your disposal. If you look on the left side here, you notice you can see everything's available to you, including your own stuff, which is where your uploads are. So perfect. Absolutely useful. Hello, Dread. Hey, Dread, welcome. Glad you're here. I didn't know you haven't been to one before, been to a stream before. Super glad that you are here. Sweet. Yeah, let's go ahead and make a bridge. So I'll put together a wall until someone asks another question. Just give you an example. This is how easy it is to make one. Top of the FG layer. So with stamps, you have up to 11 layers. I'm not sure about any other paintable layers. I think 2 is where we'll stop at. But when it comes to stamps, you actually have 11 layers. And if you factor in groups, you have a heck of a lot more layers. But I think the answer to your question for now would definitely be clipping masks, because that will definitely help you out. But I definitely think that, ooh, is there a performance problem? None that I know of. Let's go ahead and copy and paste this clipping mask underneath the bridge here, and I'll go ahead and just group it. I always group things, especially something with a clipping mask, so I don't accidentally walk away with maybe the stamp but not the clipping mask. So here's how you make a real simple, easy bridge. Just take 2 walls, make them parallel to each other, and then put some clipping masks underneath, a layer beneath. Boom, there's your bridge. You can make it as decorative as you want. Add statues, shadows, whatever you want to it. Super easy to put together. Hey, Beatrix, I'm glad, Beatrix Ray, glad you are here as well. And hey, Dread. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm so glad that you are all here, because all of you have great suggestions. These are some of our EA folk, and they know what they're doing. So feel free to ask them any questions as well. They are fantastic. I am glad they are all here. Sweet. Yeah, so clipping masks are a must. So check out Bridge. Rotating it any place you want. Clipping masks stay in place. It's like a movable FG, basically. If you're thinking to yourself, well, I want to make a movable FG. How do I do that? Well, you could do it with clipping masks. You could even make your own landmasses with clipping masks if you just copy and paste them all together, and you can move them around. Though it might be easier just to use the FG layer. Okay, is there any other questions in here that I missed? Let me just check here. Is there a performance issue? Not that I know of. Yep, ask any questions that you got. I'll take it. I'm just going to continue kind of working on this map while people ask in questions. Anything goes. Feel free to ask. I will gladly answer any questions you got. Did you guys know that we're doing Maptober, and that I think today's prompt is, if I'm correct, let's see, I think it's Water Temple. I hope you're all enjoying our Maptober event. It's absolutely fantastic. Always fun to come up with more than 2 paintable layers. I'm not sure if we'll do that, but you know what? Go check in the chat, and there's a feature request. And you should ask for that feature request, because it might already be asked for. I'm not sure. You should definitely check and see. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. I think there are definitely workarounds to do that paintable layer thing with clipping masks, though not really. No, I don't think so. Yeah, there's only 2 paintable layers, really. But more than 2 would be interesting, definitely, like Photoshop. I totally get it. That's cool. That's cool. I like that idea. I'm just going to refresh the page. So whenever you bump into like some weird stuff, notice right here, you'll see there's kind of this weird thing right here. It looks kind of weird. See how odd that was? Whenever you kind of bump into issues like that, just be sure to just save and refresh the page. It's just sometimes little bugs can occur. It's an online tool. So just save and refresh the page if you ever bump into some visual quirks like that. So I'll just go ahead and refresh anyway, because I saved it. It's always good to refresh clipping masks. Okay. Oop, Got some questions, anyone? Please let me know. All right. Hey, oh, wait. Okay. Hi, Spider Cat. Welcome. Glad you're here. Got any questions? Feel free to ask. It's all an open game. Feel free. You know, while people aren't, if people also, I'll show some neat tricks since while people are getting questions together, I want to show some really fun tricks that I've kind of put together. And I'll show you some fun ways that you can create a little bit more depth on your landmasses. Oh, here we go. Sometimes when I paint it, it makes black lines around it. It happens especially when I use low performance machines. How do I fix this? Hey, that's an easy fix. Save your map and then run the recovery feature. So you see this right here. There's going to be something called your recovery feature. Go ahead up to the top left-hand corner, look up recovery, and then start recovery. And what those lines are is, it looks like it's just the bounding boxes, which are supposed to be invisible, are just lagging. And so it's kind of creating these lines. It's easy to fix before you do any kind of exports or decide to export the map and give it to a client or play around with it for a game. Run the recovery first. It will remove those little black lines and then just save it after you do the recover. It's an easy fix, and I actually didn't come up with that fix myself. Someone else in EA did, Eledril, I believe. So thank you to Eledril for that tip. So easy fix, just run the recovery, just like Cheryl said. Perfect. Oh, yep, it's an easy fix, right? Nothing special. Don't have to mix baking powder and water, do any crazy chemistry or anything. It's just as simple as just run that recovery. Just be sure to save, okay? All right, I'm going to go ahead and do a real quick trick real quick. I'll show you. Oh, here's another one. There's no feature, but it's your personal opinion. How would you feel about regional stickers that aren't diagonal? I'm always trying to get creative around buildings that aren't forward-facing. Oh, specifically for the regional stamps? Oh, I think most of the regional stamps are a pseudo-isometric. Are you saying you're actually looking for that? Because if you look at most of the stamps here, they're in a pseudo-isometric. Are you looking for completely front-facing? Let me know. I might be reading it wrong. Oh, I see. Ones that aren't forward-facing? I'm not sure I understand that question. Maybe I'm missing it. All I know is that most of the... Let me go ahead and turn on the grid here and you can see it. So this is an isometric grid right here. So if I put a stamp down, you'll notice that the stamps are generally within the kind of purview of isometric. It's a graphical projection called isometric. I'll go ahead and I'll remove the grid to the bottom here. Now, if you were thinking about like Fantasy World completely front-facing, then you would go to Fantasy World. These are the kind of stamps Fantasy World has. I think there is a pseudo-isometric, but also front-facing. Like these would be completely front-facing, only one face completely, like that. So those are kind of the only two real sticker graphical projections besides top-down, which, as you know, is just completely top-down. You're not really seeing anything. Let me go into Fantasy Battle Maps here. It'll show you the other graphical projection. It's just pure top-down, where you don't see... It's, again, just one face, but it's the top face, so bird's eye view, basically. Those are the kind of graphical projections that I think are in the art in Inkarnate. There are some videos where I do what's called top-down opaque graphical projection. That's a live stream where you can watch that on our YouTube channel. Just check that out. It's another one that requires some extra work. Is there an easy way to align items together like Photoshop has? I always find myself struggling to make straight walls. So the way that I do walls is that I just use the grid, but I don't know if there's a snap to grid option, but we are working on it, and I do believe it's been suggested as well. Let me check. I don't think we have a snap to grid that I know of. Yeah, no, there is not a snap to grid. But it's been suggested. It's been suggested, and definitely I would love to have that myself. But guess what? Once we have the wall tool, you're not going to need to worry about lining up walls anymore, because the wall tool will do all of that for you. But yeah, I use the grid whenever I want to line up my walls. Of course, if you're doing top down, I use the square grid like this, and then I just put it up against the wall. And I generally start fairly big so I can see it together, because just know that when, oh, I know, I can't wait for a wall tool, I can't tell you. But in the meantime, just as a workaround, use the grid. And of course, when you're putting walls together, what also really helps is to make them fairly large at first, because if you're in a smaller editing resolution like 2K, it gets a little blurry and you might not realize they're lined up properly. So I go a little big at first, and that way they're not super blurry and they're easier to see. So it is time consuming to line up walls. I totally understand that, but the grid is a great start. And just making them a little bit larger so you can see that they're lined up properly, because it's really annoying when you're putting them together and then when you export it at like 6, 8K, you kind of notice the walls aren't lined up right. If you're in a lower resolution, just make the stamps slightly bigger, and that will make it easier to line them up. Obviously, of course, the more walls you have, it's going to be a little bit harder, but this is just a great way, and absolutely copy and paste. And if you don't know how that works, just select the two, copy, paste. It's going to be Control-C, Control-V, and just copy and paste. And this way, you can put them together much quicker. And then you can rotate them and also group them. I like to group segments of walls so that way they're easier to put together. So really, really helpful, right? Yes, absolutely. 100%. Make sure I didn't miss any questions here. Yeah, I cannot wait for the wall tool. Okay, yeah, these are the graphical projections that we have right now. Isometric and a pseudo-isometric, because not every single regional stamp actually is perfectly isometric. Some of them are a bit different. And of course, front facing, just one face, another face, but top down completely. Right, okay. All right, while people are putting questions together, I'll try to do a little trick here. I discovered some interesting ideas maybe that might be interesting to you when you're trying to put together your maps. So let's say that you're making your, just joining, what's the stream about today? Hey, Justice RFA. The stream is just a Q&A. If you have any questions about the editor, mask tool, any of the tools, folders, how to clone, how to share your map with people, any questions like that, you can leave that here and we'll answer that for you. A whole bunch of questions have already been asked, so go scroll up, and you can also go back and check earlier in the stream if maybe a specific question you've asked has been answered. All right, so while people are putting more questions together, I'll go ahead and just do this neat little trick right here that I discovered, and I want to share it with you because I think you might all find it kind of useful. But let's just to say that your landmasses just don't pop up off of the map. Because sometimes landmasses seem kind of flat, and I'll show you a real quick trick to make your landmasses pop out, how to make them look like have some elevation to them. So I'll show you a neat trick with that. And it's a really simple one. I'm going to go ahead and turn the grid off. I don't need it. And a great way to make this landmass pop out, I'll go ahead and just put some grass on it too, real quick, and maybe just put a little mountain on it or something. And then I'll show you a neat little trick. And this works in any style, works for whatever map you're working on. I'm going to go ahead and type in a mountain real quick. I'll show you guys a really cool trick. Don't worry about interrupting me. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. It's okay to interrupt me. I don't mind. Oopsie. Gotta know how to spell mountain correctly. There we go. Let's put a green one down. All right, so I'm just going to put this mountain on top of this, and then I'm going to show you a trick to make this kind of pop out. There's something besides just mask effects. I know mask effects are like the #1 thing you're going to use, but I can show you a really cool trick with the path tool to make your landmass pop out. First, just lay down a path, change it to black. You're going to want to make it as big as possible. Change the width. You're going to make it blur quite a bit. Give it a lot of blur. There we go. Bring the opacity down. And let's also change the path to pop out just a little bit more. There we go. Okay. If you take that black path and just put it right underneath the landmass, just right underneath, right where it connects with the water, you'll notice that it kind of causes the landmass to pop out, right? And you need to know where exactly to do this. You don't do it on the back side of a landmass. You do it on the front facing side of the landmass. Yeah, see, simple, easy to use, easy to do, and it doesn't look bad. It looks decent, right? And all you did was just put a little path right underneath. Just make sure you do lots of blur so that it pops out. But I just want to know there is a caveat to this. You don't want to put the path here on this side. And the reason why is because you can't see that face, right? You can't see that face. So whenever you put down the path tool, you put it here on the face that's facing you, and then that way it makes it look like it's popping out. So the path tool is kind of, it does a little more than just paths. I mean, I use it for paths, but I use it for a lot of other things as well. So yeah, see how easy that was? All it did was just make it pop out. And the reason why I suggest this is because sometimes when you're using mask effects, it doesn't always work right. See, when you add a stroke to the stroke is always going to be the exact same width no matter where you go, right? It's always going to be this thick line. It's not going to change. It doesn't look like a pencil where you have different varying thicknesses, like if you're using like a ink pen, right? So just using the shadow or using the path tool and just putting it right underneath is, in my opinion, just works a heck of a lot better. And one other thing that you can do to make it look interesting is to use contrast. So you can use the inner shadow, and I'll make the inner shadow white, and you can use black and white to make something pop out. We're using contrast to make something pop out, right? So black against white, those are neutral colors. That's how you make it pop out. So I put a little bit of white around it like this, and that white kind of blends, goes well against that black, making it pop out even more, giving it an even more dimensional feel to it. So kind of just experiment with mask effects, paths, play around with stuff. I'm going to go ahead and check anything with, if you had any questions that I might have missed. Yep, path tool, shadows recoloring, yep, recoloring. You can also use cliff stamps, but because they are fixed shapes, it's harder to fit. Yeah, absolutely. Cliffs are a great way. And I do recommend that you use the cliffs with the clipping masks. I believe that's in Fantasy World. So if you go to Fantasy World real quick, and I'll show you these awesome cliffs. These are fantastic. The reason why I recommend using the cliffs with the clipping masks is because all you can do is just put clipping masks behind them. And I'll show you a neat little trick that you can do here that I've done before. So if I'll just put together one little landmass using the cliffs. And the nice thing about this is they're set up in a way to where they go in a circle. So if I go through the various ones like this, we'll put one there and then put another one right there. Let's just keep going here. I'll add a couple more and then put another one here. Now this is not a very good landmass shape. I know it's kind of a weird one. So let me go ahead and put this together. So if you put these cliffs together like this, and of course I would group them and then label it if you wish, and then throw down your clipping mask. Make sure it's a layer below, and then just kind of fill in underneath like this. Let's see here. Oh, I do believe there is a path underneath there or whatever. I'll turn that off. And I actually will show you. I actually have made a series of landmasses made with these that you can use yourself. So go ahead and group this. There we go. Okay, hold on a second. People got some questions here. I really feel like Inkarnate team should come up with an AI design team to make procedurally generated walls, cliffs, and borders. That's an interesting idea. Justice RFA, when drawing landmasses on a fantasy world or parchment world map style with the mask effect, I can't get the edges of the continents to look natural or like other actual maps. Is there something I can do besides take loads of time with the circle shape or edge shape on roughness 3? At the moment, not really. I would say that right now, as it is, it takes multiple passes to kind of put together a really nice landmass. So I actually totally understand that. It is kind of frustrating. But at the moment, I don't know of any other way to do it, to be honest with you. I'd have to check, but I don't think there's a quicker way unless someone in EA has a magic trick that I do not have. Please tell me what it is, because I want to know what it is. But yeah, I mean, if you also go on my profile, I've kind of made a whole bunch of these varying shapes of landmasses just like this, and you just can copy and paste them together to kind of make a kind of larger landmass shape. So if I kind of put this on top like this, it's something like this. You're just putting a whole bunch of these together to kind of create this illusion of height. Almost kind of looks like those old RPGs, you know, from the old days. Kind of has an interesting look to it. So definitely go on my profile and check that out if you're looking for a bunch of landmasses that you can kind of piece together. Okay. Yeah, but just remember that neat little trick. Just use the path tool, put it underneath, and it's as simple as that. It makes it pop out. Works great. And I'll show you actually some other tricks that you can do. You don't have to use a path. You can also paint it in. I can show you another little trick you can do. Let's go with maybe a brownish color. Let's go with that red color there. And you can take this path real quick. Let me go and put it down. Let me see how thick it is. Kind of small. Let me turn off the path, turn off the shadow real quick. I'll show you one other trick that you can kind of do as well that I have found that kind of works. You can go ahead and just take the path tool and kind of create a cliff. Now don't worry about overlapping onto the BG layer because you're going to end up flattening it. But what I do is I just go like this, all the way across like this, and just continue kind of creating this kind of a ledge here. Let's put one here as well. And what I'm doing is just kind of creating these cliffs using the path tool. And you can just make sure that it's at 100%, make sure that the shadow is off. And in this way, you can kind of create some interesting shapes. Like you can kind of create some weird dips here, kind of create this stuff. Make it maybe deeper, maybe it goes farther in like this. Put some dips here like this. And then you just go in and you just go to select tool, select only the paths, select these, flatten to FG, and I'll turn the mask effects off too because I don't need them. Turn off those mask effects, and then you have some interesting cliffs here. And you can change the cliffs, by the way, to a different blend mode if you want them to work better. So I'll show you that trick real quick. I'll undo it real quick. So the path tool can do more than just that. Let me go ahead and change the blend mode to darken, multiply. Maybe we want to pick up some of the, there we go, pick up some of the texture underneath it. And I'm going to turn off these mask effects. Sorry about that. Turn that off. And then only select the paths. Select flatten to FG. So now you have kind of different, you're retaining some of the texture underneath the path. So it kind of looks like there's some texture in it instead of just a flat brown color. So that's one way that you can add in cliffs with the path tool. Hey, awesome. If you could copy and paste from one map to another, Rasmus. Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with that. I think there is in the feature requests a request to do groups. And I would love this myself because I use groups constantly. And I would love to copy and paste them across maps. So definitely go to that feature request and click that because I absolutely love that feature so much. Thank you, Cheryl, for providing the link, by the way. I would love a group to stamp feature that allows you to put them across. That'd be sweet. Been advocating that for a little while now. Let's see here. Some other things that I wanted to suggest as well. Some people asked me some questions earlier. Feel free to ask a question in the chat. I will address that. First, and don't wait for me. Feel free to just ask the question. I'm going to show you how to create a curved horizon on your map. This question has been asked to me on several occasions, and I know that you have seen on my maps that I create this curved horizon in the background, whether it's with a regional world map. How is it that I make those curved, how do I make those curved horizons? And I'll show you. There are multiple ways that I do it, and there's multiple tricks, because when it comes to doing curved or trying to show a globe, it can be kind of difficult to put it together, so I'll have to show you how to do that. And feel free to interrupt my demo That's okay, I don't mind at all. So the first method is to use the add mode of the mask tool and to use the shape tool to create your horizon. I'm going to turn off the snap to grid option. I don't need it. Here's one way. So that top part up there is going to be the horizon. So if I add like this, and I'm going to also put this on here, make sure, oopsie, there we go. I think I need to save and refresh the page. If you'll forgive me, wait just one moment here. See if this happens, just save, refresh the page. It'll work just fine. Don't worry about it. But I want to show you how to make these curved horizons because they really add a really nice kind of sense of dimension and distance to it. So yeah, I also have the bug happening once in a while. Thankfully, it's only once in a while. But generally, it's just caused by a lot of things running at once. You have a slower system or not as powerful machine. You have a slower internet. You might be sharing it with people. It's just all the quirks that kind of come with using an online tool. But don't worry, you won't lose your work or anything like that. If a bug happens, just save, refresh the page. If the problem persists, go to the bottom right-hand corner in My Maps, click that little yellow smiley face, and you can easily fix that problem. So we'll let you, excuse me, sorry. If you ask any questions and support, we'll definitely help you out, okay? So this is one way that you make a curved horizon. Clearly, I use the add mode for the land and the subtract mode, and I usually just make a black background like this. Just go like this, enter, make that black. And so now you have this backdrop that you can work with. You can throw in like a satellite, space scene, moons, stars, spaceship landing, whatever you want. The beauty of making a curved horizon is that you do have outer space as well to add. If you wanted to maybe create the heavens or your atmosphere, or maybe you wanted to show a sky cloud or a sky city or a cloud castle, then you could throw that on the curvature, right? Just know that whenever you do curved like this, I recommend that you try to put down some guidelines on where stamps can be. And what I do is I just start at the bottom here like this and just create these lines right here. And these kind of act as like your guidelines. So that way you know which directions your stamps are kind of going in. So that way you're like, well, which way do my stamps go? It's pretty easy. You just kind of use this as a guide to kind of help you out so that stamps are staying within the same perspective or the same curvature as the horizon line, which is that curved line there, okay? Really easy to do it. Now the hard part is putting together landmasses. What button did you press to get the, oh yeah, you should be able to hold down the shift key to get angles like this. So if you just hold down shift like this way, you'll only be going at certain degreed angles. And I can't tell you how useful that is because I do actually do a little bit of drawing just with the path tool for things, and that can be really fun. So definitely you hold down that shift key so that it's easier to do. Okay, if you have any questions, don't forget to ask. Don't let me get in the way. I don't want this to be just a demo on horizons, but I'll keep going unless we have new questions. So the way that I would do it is, the hard part with this is that if you don't want the landmass, if you don't want the BG layer to blend with the atmosphere or your space, you kind of have to create a landmass that takes up the whole horizon. So let's go like this, just say this is a landmass right here. And then I'll go in with a larger size. Just say put one here, put a landmass here. Let's put a landmass right here. You see, notice that the landmass at the top is goes all the way across from one side. From one side. Oopsie, come on now, free draw here, escape, there we go. You see how the horizon line goes from one side to the other? Ever too much detail? Never, never too much detail. So with this, the way that I do it, if you're going to do landmass, is that you have to make sure that the landmass at the top, that's this thing right here, is spanning all the way from the left to the right side, so that way you don't accidentally draw paint in your ocean behind, because this section right here, that blue and this black, are both the BG layers. Okay, so that extra piece of land that goes from one side to the next is just to help to make sure that you don't accidentally paint on the other side. So I would take, obviously, this texture right here, this blue one, and of course I would only put it underneath the landmass, not above it. And there you have it. That's how you create your curved thing there. Any questions? Can you explain the difference on how layers work in regional world versus battle map styles? Oh yeah, there is a difference. I'm trying to remember the difference too. Let me go ahead and figure out. I'm in the regional style right now. So let me go and put down some stamps in the regional style. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to advanced settings, and there should be some placement. I'm going to go to multiple. So if I go like this, it will select multiple. Now you're gonna notice that with these stamps, let me put down, this is with Fantasy Regional, is that there is something called a bounding box. And what's gonna happen is that notice that these two stamps right here are on the exact same layer. This is Fantasy Regional, okay? If I take this stamp and I put it in front like this, and I try to push it up, eventually it's going to switch to being behind it. So you'll notice that what's happening here is that it's recognizing when the stamp that I have selected and moving around is going from front to back, okay? So this is like extremely helpful if you want to put a bunch of things together and you want to not have to accidentally put yourself in front of a stamp. So it's really helpful to know how bounding boxes work in Fantasy Regional. Now I'll have to open up a different style to show how Fantasy Battle Maps and the other styles work, because unfortunately, whenever you're in a certain style, let's say that even if I put down Fantasy Battle Map stamps, let's go to Fantasy Battle Map stamps, it's gonna behave a bit differently. So when you open up a different style, the bounding boxes and the selections are going to act differently. So let me go ahead and put down, let's say, some pillows right here, make it nice and big. And I'm gonna go back and make sure it's set to multiple. And I'm gonna drag the stamps across. You notice that it acts the same. There's no difference in how it acts because I'm in Fantasy Regional. Let me go over to Fantasy Battle Maps and let's just see how it reacts there. Yep, Battle Maps always have the most recently placed stamp above the others if placed in the same layer. Yep, that is correct. Excellent. Let me go into Fantasy Battle Maps real quick. That's a great question, by the way. Great question. Don't forget to save. Oops, I didn't save it. Oh well, it's okay. Let's go to Fantasy Battle Maps. Open that up real quick. Boom, boom. Oh no! Oh, it's all right. Don't worry. I'm actually going to be doing an entire stream on curved horizons and everything, and I'll be going over this. There's at least 3 different ways that I've discovered that you could do it, but don't you worry. I'll leave that for a whole different stream. What I want to do is just answer as many questions as possible, so that we can help people out. Because what I want to do is ultimately get as many questions as possible, and then I can make them into little clips. Okay, so let's say you have trees here. I'm gonna turn the object shadow off, and I'll just change my background to gray. A neutral color works great. Whenever I start a map, I like to actually use gray. And the reason why is because it's a flat color, and I can see how stamps look on the map like this. So I don't do texturing until later, until I place the stamps down, unless it's a challenge doing textures first. But I like to make the background gray because it's just so much easier to put things together. I'm just making a tavern called the Beer Golem and asking questions as I go to make sure I learn stuff. A beer golem? I could just eat that up or drink that right up. You know, is it bottomless? I just need to know. Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and show you how stamps work here. So I'm going to go ahead and place a stamp. You'll notice that as I dragged it down, it recognizes that stamps in the front. So if I push it back like this, you see what happens? It doesn't do the same thing. it doesn't do the same thing that Fantasy Regional does. See how I have it on one layer? I actually have to click it down. So it works a bit differently. You have to put it down a layer. And I will mention that when you are working on a map, this is just a suggestion that I recommend, is that you start, when you work on a map, start at the top and work your way down, particularly with battle maps, just the way that the style works. So I like to always go from the top down. This is really helpful to me with stamps when I'm working on a map. It's just my thing. It doesn't work for everybody, but I like to work from the top going down. It just works better with the stamp style. While we are in battle maps, can we get a refresher on the difference between object and layer shadows? That is a great freaking question. Yes, please let the infinite beer flow. I love it. Wonderful. Yes, let's talk about object and layer shadows. This is super important. We have an entire stream on this, but this is really important. So I'm going to go ahead and place down a stamp. And just usually for the default, there's an object shadow. And if you're not curious how an object shadow works, an object shadow means that whatever stamp is below it, the shadow will be cast on top of it. Let me go ahead to advanced settings, or let me go to the shadow object, and let me change it a little bit and bring the intensity up like this. And you'll notice that the stamp on top, the shadow, goes on top of the stamp. Right? That's how object shadows work. So if you're wanting stamps to stack shadows on top of each other, which can look great if you're trying to maybe put a bunch of grass stacked on top of each other, or rocks or whatever for maybe a collapsed section, adding those thick object shadows work fantastic. But let's just say that you don't want to use object shadow, you want to use a layer shadow. Notice the difference with the layer shadow is that the layer shadow is only going to affect when it's on a layer. Let me turn off the shadow on the stamp beneath it real quick, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Notice that the shadow that was on here, let me go ahead and change the intensity of the layer shadow. Take a look at it, and you'll notice that the shadow does not apply on the stamp beneath it, right? It's because it only is going to show up, the shadow is only going to be cast on the FG and BG layers alone. They won't be cast on a shadow, or on a stamp, sorry. So now if I click that same stamp and then go to layer again, then it's going to put a shadow underneath the entire stamp. And if I put a whole bunch together, this works great if you're just trying to make like maybe a giant tree, because I noticed the trees are they're not super huge. Some of the trees can be kind of small at 100%. And maybe you don't want to make this massive tree with the line work being so different. So the way to make a fairly large tree or a big bush is just to copy and paste a bunch of these together with the layer shadow. And that way it'll make it look like it's one whole tree because it's set to layer, right? And then you can change the layer settings to whatever you want. I want the shadow to be a little bit thicker, a little bit darker. You can do that too. So it kind of looks like one tree instead of a bunch of trees put together because of the layer shadow. So those are the different types of shadows. Object, which means it's going to project a shadow on top of another object. Layer shadows only on the FG and BG layers. They will not project that shadow onto the stamp, only the layer. All right. Any other questions? Feel free to ask. Yeah. Ooh, if I start a map in one style, is there a way to get filters from other styles to be applied? Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to your filter tool, it says it right here. Look at filters, go add new filter, and you're going to notice there's a plus button. Let's say that you're not getting all the texture filters that you want. You click that plus button. You're going to open up the catalog. You can just press the F key. I think it's the F key. Oh, nope. Not the F key. You can just click open catalog like this, and you'll notice that it only has fantasy battle maps. It says filters right here. Now you can open this too and click this, but my suggestion is just click the Inkarnate tag at the top, and what that's going to do is it's going to load every single filter that's available from every style. So if I open it up like this, you'll notice here are all the filters that are available. Now I do believe there are some filters that are not applicable to some styles. I believe it's a color one. I don't believe that Doom and Gloom and I think there's another one, Corrupted Essence. I don't think those ones show up for certain styles. I can't remember, but we can look into that. But yes, if you're looking for all the filters, just click the Inkarnate tag, and then all the filters from the various styles will be there for you. Because believe me, I understand. The only reason why you can't access them all at once, open them all at once, is because it can kind of be laggy. And if you just leave it at just one dedicated to that style, it just won't be as laggy with the catalog. But most of those are going to, all of them are going to be, or most of them are going to be available, but just by clicking that Inkarnate tag. Yeah, Doom and Gloom and Corrupted Essence, those are the ones. Yeah, those are some of my favorite ones too. Yeah, great question, by the way. Absolutely love that question. Yeah, feel free to ask any questions that you have. Don't forget we have a note tool. I know it's not really robust yet. I would love to see a more robust note tool. That'd be really sweet. It'd be really cool if you could, like, select a stamp and then it has a note that comes with it. I think that would be pretty sweet, right? Can you show us how we can use filter layers to show up only certain stamp layers? How we can use filter layers to show up only certain... Yep, great question. Let's go ahead and take a series of trees, and we're going to put them on different layers. Let's just go with -5 here. Okay, I'm just going to go with a straight line across, like this. Let's go up another layer, -4. Or let's just go across a couple too. Let's put one on layer 1, -2, sorry, my mistake. And let's say, let's go with layer 5. Sweet. Love it. All right, so these are all at different layers. Notice how this one is at layer -5. If you go to your selection, you'll notice right here, just the select tool, press that V key, come up here. You're gonna notice you'll have all object types. You'll have stamps, text, paths, and groups, and they're all selected by default except this enable layer selection one, and it's going to give you from what to what. So if I put -5 to layer 2 like this, I'm only going to be able to select the stamps that are in that range from -5 to -2. Now, if you're going to use this method, if you're going to use the selection like this, you're going to want to think ahead about when you place a stamp and where they're located. So it's always important, like if you're making a scene or something and you want trees in the background, and then you're moving stamps going forward up the layers, it requires a little bit of pre-planning because you might accidentally select a whole bunch of stuff that you didn't know was in a certain layer, object layer. So always, always, always be sure to be very cognizant, be very salient about when you're placing your stamps, because that layer selection option is really only useful unless you're kind of aware where everything is. You have to scroll into the object layer. So think a little bit first when you're using that option. It's very helpful. Oh, what's the question here? The limits, I believe it is 1,000. I believe that is correct. At worst, I'll save my maps. That's right. You can make, and if you reach that limit, you can always delete maps that you don't need anymore. Hey, Dragon at Rest, welcome. Glad that you are here. Sweet. So yeah, easy to use, right? Not too complex. So very useful to use that option. So you just have to click it to use it. It's not set to any default or anything like that. So super easy to use. Definitely recommend it. I use it all the time, and I find it very, very useful. Multiple giant trees reposting this. Is there a way to group shadows, like if I wanted multiple giant trees? Group shadows? Yeah, you could just use an object as a shadow. Like if I take this right here, sometimes when I'm making a forest scene, I like to not show the top of the forest because, if you're looking in a thick forest, right, and you want to see the shadows from the trees, but you don't want the trees to get in the way of your player's vision, just put down trees, bring the HSBC all the way, the brightness to black, and then drop the opacity. And then here you have a bunch of shadows of trees, and just place them around like this. And it's okay if they overlap, because shadows would get darker as they overlap like that. So yeah, and then you can just group these if you want to. Maybe I didn't understand the question properly, but this is how I've done, sometimes done shadows, is just group them. You can use paths too. So yeah, super easy to use. This is just use a tree, because you notice it looks like a shadow, right? And then there's another neat trick you can do too, real quick. I'll show you this. You can put a stump in the center of those shadows to make it look like that's the base. So I can take a stump like this and just make sure that you put it a layer below it, right? Because you want some shadow to be there. And we'll make this set to 100%. 1 second. And you just put a stump right here in the center. And then it looks like you've got your trees to your forest. So super easy to do, looks good. Just make sure you center them. There you go. And I didn't come up with this idea. I forgot who it was who came up with this. I'm pretty sure they saw it from someone else as well. But it's a really easy way to make a forest without actually having the foliage from the trees get in the way, because it gets really frustrating. So yeah, and just select all of these. I'm just going to go ahead and select everything from this set, and I'll just turn the object shadow off. There you go. And now you have your trees, and players can walk around. Obviously, you would set, if you're using a VTT, you just set the walls around the stumps so that way, if they bump into the stump, they can't walk into it, right? So it's a great way to kind of put in height and stuff like that. So really easy to do. I love that trick. It's fantastic. Oh yeah, blurs work great too. If I wanted to, I could select all these stamps right here. Let's just select all the summer trees and just click that blur. And you can cause a blur to happen. You can even bring the blur up. You can do that as well if you want them to be blurred. Yep, terrain walls would work just fine. I don't use Foundry, but yeah. All right, sweet. So that's kind of an easy way. Where are we at for time? Oh, you know what? I will answer one more question. Actually, it is almost 4 p.m. PST. I think it's time to call it good. I think that's going to be the end of the stream. Some great questions in here. I'll make sure to add this to YouTube. So just go look for that. Oh, someone come with a good question. Quick, snag him before he runs off. I love it, you guys. Fantastic. All right. Well, hey, everyone, it's been great. I've really enjoyed chatting with you and answering all these questions. As you know, next week is going to be, I believe it's going to be perspective battle maps. So you'll see here that we've just finished our Q&A. So perspective battle maps. Can you show us how to contact support? Yeah, absolutely. And I showed this in the beginning, but I want to show it to you. If you're looking for support, bottom right-hand corner, click this orange little smiley face person right here, greetings traveler, send us a message, type in the message right here, what you're looking for, and we'll go ahead and get back to you. So it's a perfect place for that. Let me go to, let me see if I can find some perspective single room template. So basically, I'm going to be showing you how to make a perspective battle map in next week's stream. And it's easy to kind of put together. So I'll be showing you how to make a very simple perspective battle map. And all the perspective battle map means is that there's a vanishing point, which means you're probably going to see the walls and there's going to be perspective. These maps are obviously not the most practical for battle maps, but they're great for one-shots, especially if you have a large one. They're great for maybe you want to spice up. Maybe there's a puzzle on the wall or you want to look for clues somewhere. Perspective is a great way to add that kind of fun stuff in there. It's not purely orthographic. There's perspective because there's a vanishing point. So we're going to be doing that next Wednesday, 3 p.m. PST. I'm super excited about that. Perspective is not nearly as complex as you think. It just requires guidelines. Once you throw down the guidelines, it actually gets easy to put together. It is time consuming because remember, the stamps with this the stamps to make this are not built for perspective battle maps. They're purely orthographic. So you have to do a little bit of finagling, but these are really fun to put together. And if you're a private contractor trying to sell your maps, this is a great way to make a kind of a different kind of perspective map that might be more interesting than your usual, and they're great, again, for one-shots, boss battles, stuff like that. Hey, Heinrifu, I'm just headed out now, but I'm really glad you stopped by. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. I'm really excited about that, and I'll be putting up the new calendar for the following or the next month as well, and I'll be including, of course, a curved horizon. Oh no! Heinrifu, come back. We love you. All right. Hey, thanks everybody. I'll add this to YouTube, and of course, I'll provide the link. Oh, good morning to you. I will provide the link in our Discord in the tutorial and guide channel. So, hey, thank you everybody. I'll see you soon. Merry map making. Please stay safe and healthy, and I will see you next week. Auf Wiedersehen.